So good afternoon, and welcome to today's seminar hosted by Oregon Institute of Occupational Health Science. And we are delighted to welcome our regular attendees and the field experts and practitioners joining us our seminar today. I'm Dr. Emily Huang, and as many of you may know, fostering a positive workplace culture and climate has long been the mission and passion of our Safety Climate Lab. So today, we are very honored to have Dr. Linda Goldenher leading us in Oregon from Ohio, yes, and joining us today and give a seminar focusing on safety culture and safety climate. Yes. Dr. Linda Goldenher received her PhD from the University of Michigan and began her career in 1992 at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, as a research psychologist. She recently just retired, yes, as the Director of Research and Evaluation at CPWR, the Center for Construction Research and Training, a position she held for 11 years. During her tenure, she led the agency's safety climate and safety leadership research activities. So you have heard a lot about their tools, their training programs. Again, appreciate to share that with us today. And she has authorized over 85 peer-reviewed papers and has been presented extensively, both nationally and internationally. Yes. So in 2019, Turner Construction Companies awarded Dr. Goldenher their prestigious Innovations in Excellence Award. Yes, for her outstanding work. So we are very happy to have Turner's colleagues joining us today. Yes. So without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to Dr. Linda Goldenher. Yes.
Thank you, Emily. That was a lovely introduction. I appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for being here. I'm glad I didn't bring the warm weather. I've actually been here since Saturday. We visited my brother-in-law in Estacada, where it snowed 4 inches one morning, and then the next morning, and the next morning. And it was fabulous, because we've gotten no snow in Ohio all winter. So it was pretty cool. We had a really fun time. I'm glad I brought my hiking boots. But so thank you again for inviting me to come today, all the way out here from Ohio, out to the West Coast, and tell you about the research that I've been doing. And I'm still doing, I retired, but I'm still tying up loose ends or so until next August. And so it's been great. And I retired, but, you know, and academics, whatever, it's hard to retire. And so I thank you for the opportunity to come out here. This may be my last talk, so yay. Started way back, and this may be my swan song, as it were. Okay, so let's see if okay, here's our agenda. I'm going to start off by just telling you a little bit about who CPWR is and or what it is and what we do. And let me first ask, how many have heard of CPWR? Wow, that's good. I don't always get that in construction seminars or conferences, so thank you. That's exciting. And then I'm going to go on and, as Emily said, talk to you about the safety climate, safety leadership, and safety management work that I led starting in 2012 and show you what I've been up to. So I'm excited. All right, let me tell you, you may have heard of CPWR, but I'm going to tell you just a little bit more in detail about who we are and what we've been doing. So we are a nonprofit organization that was established in 1990 by North America's building trades unions. So we were founded by the unions, but we are not funded and never have been funded by the unions. You may be wondering what CPWR and the Center for Construction Research and Training, and that doesn't quite make sense. So I'll tell you the story behind it. About 10 years ago, we changed our name from the Center to Protect Workers' Rights hence the acronym, to the Center for Construction Research and Training, because it does a much better job describing our mission, which you can see here is to conduct high quality and high impact research, training, and service to improve construction worker safety and health. So the name goes better with what we do, but everybody already knew us as CPWR, so that was hard to get rid of. And we are funded, our research activities are funded by 5-year cooperative agreements with NIOSH. So every 5 years, we put in a big package, it's like a center grant. You're all familiar with that. And so far, we've impressed them enough that we've been funded every 5 years since 1990. And let's hope that keeps going, because we do good work. Oh, I was supposed to have anyway, the training activity is funded by National Institutes for Environmental Health Sciences, NIEHS, and our service activities, which are construction worker screening, health screenings, workers that have been at like Hannaford, you guys know that from out here, and the Savannah River, and nuclear sites and stuff. So we do construction worker training so it's kind of, it's interesting, it's kind of the first activities in total worker health, because it's not just screening for work-related issues, it's also diabetes and heart disease and things like that. So I don't think they ever considered it as a total worker health activity, but I'm going to go back and tell them that indeed it was. So in addition to our research activities, training, and service, within the research activities, R2P, or research to practice, is a huge emphasis area of ours. And to translate, and I know you guys, you said the outreach group and stuff, David was talking about that, to do that, so we do it in-house, but to translate our research into products and resources, such as those all listed here, and many more, designed for safety professionals, trainers, companies, workers, unions, researchers, and others to use and not have to reinvent the wheel or to adapt, because all of our resources are available for free because we're funded by the government. And so everything's out there on our website, downloadable for free. So let me get a sip of water here. And so I don't have time to talk about all of this stuff, of course. There's a lot of it. But I would encourage you to go to the website, and it's all there, downloadable. And for some things, we can print materials and send them out also. So if that's something you need, let us know. And you can also sign up for our mailing list or and so you keep up to date with our updates and everything else and things we're doing. So I would encourage you to do that. Okay, so that's, any questions about CPWR before we move on?
Just a quick question about languages.
Wait, excuse me?
Oh, sorry. Just a question about the tools that you just mentioned available there for downloading.
Always English, Spanish.
English and Spanish. Thank you.
Always. Everything we do is available in English and Spanish. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you about what I've been doing for the past 11 and a half years since I started working at CPWR. Just to kind of go back for a minute. So as Emily said, I was at NIOSH in the 90s. And while there, I was actually CPWR's project officer. When they got there, I think I was there for the second round, or maybe I was part of the first round. And so I really got to know CPWR very well. And also my dad was a builder, so I've also always loved the construction industry. As I say, I walked through many a stud wall as a kid on Sunday mornings on construction sites. So it's always been a passion of mine. My husband's an architect, and we've done a lot of renovation work together. And so anyway, I'm excited that I got to work at CPWR the last 11 years of my career and bring resources and tools and publish papers and stuff that focus on helping Turner and Skanskas and smaller companies, the electrical companies, bringing tools that they can use and implement on the website. So I'm going to tell you, as I said, about my work, and I'm going to show you how, starting back in 2012, 2013, I started at one point, and each research and research to practice phase built on the next one that I did. And so I'm going to take you on my journey that I went on, basically. Okay, starting back in 2013. We invited 70 stakeholders, and that included mostly folks from the industry, but we had a couple of researchers, only a couple, sorry, because we wanted to really learn from the industry information about what they thought safety climate, the definition of safety climate, safety culture, were they the same, were they different? So how to define it, and then how to measure it, and then most importantly, how to improve it. So we were a day and a half all together doing a lot of small group work. It was just a great experience doing that. And so I'm going to show you kind of what came out of that first phase. I didn't know I was going to be in phases, but looking back, it's good to look back and be able to put into some framework like, oh yeah, that's where I started, and oh yeah, there I am. So there is some connection. So for those who do work in the safety climate area, you've seen this before. I think it probably mirrors mostly Zohar's definition and others of unspoken beliefs, attitudes, values that establish norms, and the interaction between all the levels within the company or agency, and how safety is done. You know, how's it done here? On the other hand, I thought it was off the end. Safety climate is, again, employees' perceptions, and I've kind of switched this up a little bit from Zohar's definition, because it's the consistency between what their company says, that is the culture, and writes about safety, and then what is practiced on the job site. So that is kind of how it broke down at the conference. And again, these are mostly safety professionals, so we didn't tell them, Zohar or anyone else. They came to this conclusion by themselves, or as a group. Now, of course, they're related, but workshop attendees decided that because safety culture is kind of more ingrained in the organization, that perhaps, and maybe even more aspirational than actual, it might be easier and more successful if we focused if they were telling us if we focused our efforts on improving the safety climate. So that's what we've been doing since 2013. So the next activity after the workshop was to work with stakeholders to agree on what are the indicators of safety climate, and then come up with a reliable and valid way to measure it. Because, you know, safety climate isn't a thing, it's a concept. And so you have to have some type of indicators, like depression, that's a thing, but there are ways to measure depression, right? And anxiety and happiness and intelligence and all that. So we had to come up with a way to break it down. What are the indicators and measurable indicators that companies could use to actually improve their safety climate? So these were the 8, and you've seen them before. You know, it was not earth-shattering or anything new, but they aren't in rank order, except for demonstrating management commitment, of course, because without that, the rest don't even usually happen. So after the workshop, so we came up with these, the group came up with these 8 leading indicators. After that, we started to design and develop. We actually started doing this at the workshop, but then after the workshop, we really got into it. and so that we could develop tools that companies could use to measure their job site safety climate. With lots of stakeholder input, you're going to hear that as a theme of mine throughout the talk, is stakeholder input. And I mentioned to the Turner folks, Cindy DePrater, who was the VP, she wasn't then, but ended up being the Senior VP for Environmental Health and Safety. She really helped keep us grounded in making sure what we were doing was going to be usable for the industry. So I thank Cindy all the time for that. Anyway, so we started developing the SCAT and the SCAT SC. And this is just an example of one of the 8 leading indicators and what it looks like, hard copies of it. And we pilot tested it when it first came out with lots of folks, and we published a paper on it if anybody's interested. And we released it in 2016. And now there are over 13,000 responses in our SCAT database with many companies. Well, you'll see how many companies have used it so far in the, anyway. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So there are usually between, so we've got the indicator up at the top, and then there are between 3 and 8 management activities for each indicator. And as you can see, rather than a typical strongly agree to strongly disagree scale with neutral in the middle and stuff like that, we decided to use rubric scales and to measure the practices related to each of the activities. So we used the rubrics starting at the workshop and then worked on those afterwards with stakeholders, because the workshop attendees agreed that this, by having kind of a competency level scale going from, well, we'll show you, from being an inattentive company to an exemplary company, companies would have a better idea of how to move up the scale. So for example, and someone talked about this earlier, I can't remember. So as number 1, being present and visible on the job site. Again, the stakeholders helped us with these. An inattentive company rarely comes to the job site. So that would be inattentive. Exemplary frequently visits the job site and seeks out interactions with employees. And of course, you can see in between we've got reactive, only comes after an incident has occurred, compliant, only comes to the job site when required, proactive, makes regular visits, interacts mainly with management, and then finally exemplary, interacts with the employees. So for each activity, for each indicator and all the activities, we have this 5-level scale. Of course, it does numerically in the behind the scenes in the computer, it does go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to be scored, but the rubrics give more information for employees to think about. So let's see, we've done that. So after the SCAT, we heard, and it had been out for a couple years, and we heard from smaller companies and stakeholders, they mentioned that the rubrics might be a little too complicated and in-depth for smaller companies to use. So we created the SCAT for small contractors, which is, you can see, is more of a needs assessment. It's got all the same activities. It's laid out differently, but all the same activities, and a company can rank whether they're already doing it or would like to do it in the future. So it's more of a needs assessment of where they want to go with their work. And when it's called for small contractors, but that's a bit of a misnomer. That's kind of where it started. But it's a bit of a misnomer because any company beginning their safety climate journey could use this as a first step and then move on to the more in-depth one. Excuse me. Okay. So, any questions about the SCAT or the SCAT-C? SCAT-SC, you're going to see it again later. But yes? Oh,
Nobody can remember the microphone. Did you indicate, you said you have a database of companies that have used both the first scale and then this. So how did people access this? And then did you request that they share it with you? Or was it a prerequisite that if people received the tool, you know, the information automatically was fed back to CPWR?
so from 2016 to 2021, we had a website. And, you know, I was out promoting it, giving talks, and we were promoting it in other ways. That was before webinars, though. So anyway, so companies would contact us, and we'd have a discussion about how many groups did they want to take it, and mainly that. But we didn't ask anything about the company. And this is where kind of I wasn't doing this for research purposes, per se. I was doing this to help companies get information. And so I wasn't asking companies about their size or about how many employees or how much they make or any of that. I was actually asking very few demographic information. And they would enter, or I would send them an email with the code that they needed to use to share with their employees. And the employees would click on that link, and then it would come directly to us. We'd run reports. Okay. Fast forward to what you're going to see at the end, all that is now automated. And it's a good thing because I'm retired, did I mention? And I can tell you, no one would do the work that I used to do to get those folks' reports. So, but we had, so when we moved to the second system, the one you're going to see at the end, we already had 7,000 responses in the database at that point. And I think part of it was we made it clear we weren't doing it for research, and we weren't asking a lot of information, which was going to put them off, you know. So anyway, and we did collect that in pilot tests when we were pilot testing, but not afterwards. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. So the next phase after the SCAT-SC, so we've gone the workshop, the SCAT-SC. Then the next NIOSH 5-year cooperative agreement, I put in a proposal to develop to develop a leadership training program for frontline crew leaders. It didn't have a name then. It does now. But we didn't know that at that point. And so that was, okay, so you remember, that's interesting. Well, anyway, it looks like I'm missing a slide in here. So I started working on, in that list of indicators, the fourth one, improving supervisory leadership. So we wanted to start creating resources for companies to use to improve those 8 leading indicators. So we started with this one. Why did we start with this one? It was for two reasons. One was because the stakeholder partners told us that supervisory leadership on the job site is one of the most critical aspects for a crew leader to improve safety and job site safety, climate, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, that we learned. Then also in 2012, we conducted a survey of about 250 contractors of various sizes, and the results showed that regardless of company size, they would send their newly minted crew leaders. I've tried to get out of the habit of saying foremen because there are 4 women, so I say crew leaders. Thank you, Bob Coons, for teaching me that. And they said they send them to the OSHA 30-hour course to become leaders. Well, has anyone taken the OSHA 30-hour course? is there or was there anything on safety leadership in 2014 or no? Okay. So, okay, there's a place to start because there's so many people who have to take the OSHA 30 hour, which is great. So in 2015, we began putting together proposals. We got the money to do it. And then in 2015, my team, along with many stakeholders, started developing this training program to teach crew leaders, frontline leaders, some essential leadership skills they can use on the job site every day to improve job site safety climate. So here's the logo that we eventually came to after a lot of work, which I'll tell you about. And these were the 6 skills. I was telling Emily, I try to get away from the word behaviors because people in their mind then go to behavior-based safety. So we think of them as practices and skills rather than behaviors. I am a behavioral scientist, so it took me a while to get there. But anyway, so for a year and a half, we worked with a 17-member curriculum development team, or a CDT, which was comprised of mostly OSHA 30-hour trainers because they were one of our they were our key target audience. The worker, the crew leader, is the ultimate recipient target audience. But if we didn't get the trainers on board, I mean, no one was going to train it, so it wouldn't matter. We also had safety and health directors from large and small construction companies, including Turner and Skanska, I'll have you know, and that was great. And the CDT helped us make sure that the final training program that we came up with could be used by companies regardless of size and resources, and most importantly, that OSHA would agree to include it as an elective in their 30-hour. So our work together culminated in a 2.5 hour Foundations for Safety Leadership, or as it's come to be known, the FSL. On January 1st, 2017, OSHA did include it in the 30-hour as an elective. I think we lucked out. First of all, we followed to a T how they develop curriculum. We had on the CDT also one of their people, trainer people, who work in the OSHA Training Institute on the team to help make sure we were meeting their objectives for training and their guidelines for training and what an elective was and all that stuff. So when we handed it over to them in January 17, they had everything, and they agreed. I think there was a change in leadership then, so things were in turmoil, so I think we really lucked out. But nevertheless, we're very happy about that. And so we estimate that over 500,000 folks have taken the FSL, either as part of the OSHA 30-hour, as a company training, at conferences, you know, it gets to people in all sorts of ways. But that oh yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me?
Oh, front row. Is this mine?
Yes.
Oh, good, thanks.
Thank you.
I didn't want to drink someone else's water.
I was curious, what is three-way communication?
I shall tell you. So just to go back, as you can see, these are the 6 leadership skills that the CDT, we started with a very long list of possible leadership skills. We reviewed a lot of different leadership trainings to come up with this original list. And the CDT helped us winnow it down to the ones that they felt were the most critical. And it's interesting you bring up that one because that's the one where we get feedback has been the most valuable for the crew leader and the workers. And practice and 3-way communication is, I didn't bring my paper airplane, but there's a paper airplane exercise on the website that you can download. And I would be up here and you'd all have a piece of paper and I'd say, okay, I need you to make me a paper airplane now. And I've got to go to the job site, the trailer. I'll be back in 20 minutes, and I expect you to have it. So I walk away, for a few minutes, and everybody's making their paper airplanes. And I come back. I say, okay, show me what you did. And it looks like X. Show me what you did. It looks like Y. Looks like A. Looks like B. Look like Z. So, and why was that? Because I didn't practice three-way communication with the worker that I asked for that information. So I'd like you to make paper airplane. And so the worker is like, okay. And then they go away and they come back with what we saw. Now if I did, okay, I need a paper airplane made, and I need it to look like this, this, and this, or I have it written out in plans, or however it is. So let's go to construction. I need you to cut me a 2x4. So worker comes back and he's cut a 2x4 in half. And I was, okay, here you go. No, didn't want it that. I wanted it, down the. So you didn't tell me what you wanted. I said, well, you didn't ask. Okay, so this stops all that. Now, I wouldn't say eliminates rework, but it certainly reduces the amount of rework. I give you instructions, and then I say, to not make them feel bad, I say, okay, sometimes I don't always give all the information needed. Could you repeat back to me what you're going to do? The worker says, I'm just going to go cut a 2x4. I said, no, what I need you to do is do it this way. Okay, now repeat, tell me what you're going to do. Okay, so it gets everyone on the same page, but it's the interaction as opposed to just go do it. And it's back and forth. So that's what three-way communication is, and that's what we've heard from trained folks has been really valuable. Yeah.
Great, yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We always say supervisors serve as a liaison between their own team and the top managers. Would you think this activity, again, I know you call it activities, is a great way to communicate, provide feedback to different feedback loop, right? To the top as one feedback loop, to your group, to customers, to the owners, right? This is a great way to practice how to communicate to different directions, different way. Would you say?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, does that help? Yeah. Okay, great. Do you guys use it on the job site? You're gonna. Airplane exercise now. Yeah, the airplane exercise. Actually, Bob Coons from Demio Construction gave us that, and it's perfect. And that's why we made it actually an additional resource on the website. It's not just a training, and got a lot of stuff on the website. So here are the FSL skills and the logo. And if you do download it, and I hope you do, because I said, first of all, actually what I recommend is downloading the instructor guide first. All of us kind of skip over that part and just go to the training because it's interactive and it's more fun. But the instructor guide is really valuable in terms of time management and how to use the PowerPoint and discussion questions, which are also in the slides, but for instructors, it's really valuable. And in the first section of the training, students discuss the characteristics. There are other active engagement activities with the students. What does ineffective leadership look like? And of course, everybody can come up with that. What does effective leadership look like? That's a little bit more challenging, unfortunately. And then also direct costs, indirect costs of poor leadership. So we go into that about why leadership is so important. It's not just these skills. After we talk about the why, then we present each of these skills and how to practice them on the job site. And then in the second section, students apply what they've learned by working through real-world scenarios. And the construction folks on the CDT actually gave us scenarios of things that happened to them. that they've experienced or seen. And then with the scenarios, you see the characters doing it without any of the leadership skills and then with the leadership skills. And then you see how the outcome changes with that, both from the employee's standpoint, with the safety outcome, with no rework and things like that. So, and they're short animated films in 3 scenarios. Each scenario has 3 sections. The safety situation, outcome A without using the skills, and outcome B with the skills. And someone was talking about, was it you, Emily, about leading up? Who was talking about that? So it's being able to communicate at all levels, and the supervisor's responsibility is to be able to lead the people who he's supervising, but then also to lead up to management to ensure they're getting the resources they need, that safety situations are corrected, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the skills are for. So we evaluated the FSL with contractors. We had people in Colorado and Boston and Ohio and West Virginia. And we evaluated them between 2017 and 2019. And, well, actually, we did that earlier. Anyway, it showed that it was effective. Now, it wasn't a long-term evaluation, but I actually went back to over 700 people who had requested FSL information after it was out, outside of the evaluation piece, and asked them, did you use it? How's it going? Did you see any improvement? And it really was amazing. And on the FSL page, you'll see some testimonials, actually pages of testimonials of people, companies that used it, and how it, from the supervisor's standpoint, from the safety trainer's standpoint, and from the CEO standpoint. So very, very happy with this, how the FSL turned out. And we also have hard hat stickers that people can download and get printed, have it on their give it to the workers after, well, the supervisors, but they can also hand it out to the workers, because workers can go through the training too. Anybody can go through the training. We were just making sure we targeted the crew level, crew leader area. We've got all sorts of other training and supporting materials. We've got a handbook, a self-assessment tool. So if someone's doing the training, they can have the folks do a self-assessment, how you doing, and then use it later. Okay. So how are we doing? Oh, we're getting there. So SCAT, FSL. The final resource, which kind of brings all the work together in one area. Am I in your way? I feel, okay. I see people going. Okay. So the next and final phase was to, the work that I've been doing was to create additional resources that companies could use to address the final 7 indicators. So we already did the leadership, but we didn't have stuff they could use for the other ones. And so to that end, we created, in 2019, we started developing the Safety Climate Safety Management Information System. I know that's a lot, and I know when you first start saying SESMIS, it's like, blah, 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 but even the executive director at CPWR has finally gotten it. So, and why did we do this? Because we wanted to make available to contractors an easy-to-use interactive web-based system that companies, regardless of size or available resources, could use to engage at no cost continuous safety climate safety management improvement. So here's how it works. And then I'll go into a little more detail for each one. First, the idea is to conduct a safety climate assessment using the SCAT or the SCAT-SC that we talked about. Run reports, and I'll show you that. Then we put together a resource repository I'm going to tell you about. So it's got, anyway, I'm not going to get away from myself. ahead of myself. So it's just continuous improvement from, the Plan, Do, Study, Act that you were talking about earlier. Conduct the assessment, run the reports, go to the repository, download and tailor resources, plan the implementation of those resources, and then schedule annual assessments to use the SCAT again. So, not surprisingly, and you guys know that, none of this is done on your own. We do teamwork here. So it's a collaborative effort between my CPWR team, our awesome web developer, and then the user development team, as I said, back to the stakeholders. We had a user development team with these 11 companies, small companies, some a little larger, but mostly small companies, because that's really our target. Turner's have, the Skanskas have a lot of stuff, although now they're going to be using the FSL, which I'm surprised you don't already. I'm going to have to talk to Cindy about that. Anyway, we met together the week of COVID, March 4th, and we were shaking hands. We were, whatever, and then we fly home, and it's like, luckily no one got sick. So that was really good. And they were wonderful in terms of helping review materials, provide input on the design, and then participate in usability testing before we put it out into the world to small and large and medium-sized companies. So for the rest of the session, I'm going to just go through that continuous improvement cycle and show you kind of just briefly, because I'm not going to be done in 2 minutes, I can assure you. But here's the SCSMIS. This is the home page. Folks can watch videos. One is just an introductory to the SCSMIS introduction, and the other is a brief tutorial, like 4 minutes each. There's testimonials, and here they can get to anywhere else. They can either create an account or enter as a guest. And what I'm going to show you, the guests can use some things. They can't use everything because they don't have an account, and you need an account. So the CDT also helped us, and this goes back to that research thing. Initially, it was like, well, we're going to ask all these, what's your company size, and where do you do, and what's the type of work you do, and it's like, why? They already know that information, and the goal is to get them a report at the end. So we're not going to ask them that information. We're just going to ask them for their company name and zip code, just in case someone has the exact same name, which they do, like MC Dean, MC Dean, MC Dean. And is it a construction company? Because if it is, their data is going to be used for benchmarking. If it isn't, when the system does the analysis, it pulls out the non-construction data and just uses the construction data, the SCAT data, or SCAT. Well, SCAT-SC doesn't have benchmarking, just the SCAT data. Who's going to be the administrator? Who's going to use the SCSMIS? Because workers don't go here. This is for the administrator. And then account credentials, etc. Here is, once you create an account, you log in. This is the main menu. And from the main menu, they can get to anywhere on the site. They can get to the, where is that? Assessment page, SCATs, the SCAT-SC to schedule, or the results, depending on what you're doing. Then get to the repository, and then go to the current and completed action plans. So let's say someone's starting out, they go to the assessment page, they check it out, they read the really brief description. Again, I was trying to keep things not very text heavy on the website. They can download either version in Spanish or English. And then they say, hey, I want to go there. And you remember the 8 leading indicators for the SCAT. Let's do an SCAT. That's what I'm going to do. So all they have to enter is the month, day, and year that they want to start. And this will be helpful for the reporting piece too. And then they can create as many participant groups as they want. We say in this thing they should have at least 5 people in the department or on the jobs or whatever it is to try to maintain anonymity. And we'll talk about anonymity in a minute. So the company name, this is why you need an account, gets populated, pre-populated. And then there's the department, the job title, and the group total. We kept these A as optional and also a text box because, as I always say, if you've seen one construction company, you've seen one construction company. They call their departments something different, they call their people something different, and so for us to come up with a checklist, a long list, not possible. So they put in there, and people get that, there's instructions there. And once they do that, they add a group. Each of the group they just created gets populated in this box with the name and the date that they're going to be starting the assessment. And that's so when they schedule another assessment a year later, it'll be the same group with a different date. So they'll be able to tell that. Then they add a group. And so remember I told you they'd contact me, I'd send them an email with the code numbers and all that stuff. This is all automated, so they do the whole thing on their own. It makes me very happy. But we created, doing that work up front though, helped create this, because now I kind of know how to help companies with what they need. So here's a sample email that they'll get. Dear valued employee, we're asking you to participate in 20-minute, blah, 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 and trying to invite them, not like you have to do this, we're inviting you to participate. The parts of this email, so for each group they create, they get an email, a separate email, and the target group's name is up here. All of this, so this, when they forward it to the email, the group, they take off this is modifiable. Any of this is modifiable for them to tailor. The only thing that isn't modifiable is this link down here at the bottom, because employees have to click on that link for their data to be included in their group data. So does that all make sense? Okay, cool. This is why I can go longer than 45 minutes, because no one's going to ask questions. Okay. Employee clicks on that link, and you can see we're not asking for employees' names, emails, anything. So it all is anonymous. The administrator would have to know who to send it to, but they don't know who's replying. So this is basically what the employee sees. You could, it's got a brief introduction with instructions. English or Spanish, I'm not a robot, take the SCAT. And basically here are all the rubrics that we saw on the hard copy back in the beginning. And the activities up at the top, safety is integrated into organizational policies and procedures. So we have your inattentive, it's not integrated. We also have non-applicable, of course. Or safety is formally and informally integrated into all policies and procedures. And it goes from inattentive, reactive, proactive, compliant. So without getting all the words in the middle. So
that the employee they just click on the one that's most applicable?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And again, it's text. Yes, it takes a while to read it, but it also gives them the opportunity to think about it. What actually in my company is safety integrated, or when does it happen, and things like that. So they go through the questions, and there are 37 items. And so once the employees have taken it, and I always tell them, it says you need to send reminders. Oh, what I didn't focus on back here, this group total right here. So let's say there are 20 people in the group or something. They put that in. And then on this results page, they can, in real time, see how many people have responded. So I put in 10, 8 have responded, 4, 7. Okay, I think I can run report now. Or 0, 0, 0, uh-oh, better send out a reminder or whatever to get that number up. And there are 4 different reports that they can run. They check the boxes over there on which reports. They can either do an individual report, which would just be obviously one group, a comparison report, which is 2 to 4 groups, a combined report, which you'd check all of them and hit combine and get a company level report. And then we added employee comments. And only the supervisor or the safety director administrator sees those. We can't even see the comments. I can see the data in the back, you know, the 1 through 5s, but not the comments. So here's what a comparison report looks like. And it explains here the 8 leading indicators. It gives them information, name of the group, number of people. And also these are the benchmarking horizontal lines. So compared to other companies in the SCAD database, this is where you fall across the 8 leading indicators and across groups. And you can see the reason we kept the comparison report from 2 to 4, because if you start getting like 10 different groups on this, you're not going to be able to see anything. And we couldn't come up with 20 different colors to be able to do that. So you can do a number of comparison reports, just not more than 4 at one time. And this is what it also looks. The report has the overall safety climate maturity score, and then it also has for each indicator. So this is encouraging owner-client involvement, each of the levels of the scale, and then also gives it in percentage, in means, for each of the groups. And then here's the SCAD SC, which if you remember is basically a 2-point scale, you know, or non-applicable. So it's a sum as opposed to averages. We don't do sums, obviously. And then they get a table, you know, doing already, would like to do. So they get a table of frequencies, numbers, not percentages. Oops. Anybody have questions on the SCAD or SCAD SC? Or what I just showed you? Does that help with what you asked earlier? How do people take the SCAD?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get into this later, but I guess what I'm really curious about is once people get all these reports, what do they do?
Yeah, this is where I'm going.
Great. Perfect.
So this is the next step in the continuous improvement, and it goes back to the workshop. What it is, how to define it, how to measure it, and then how to improve it. So when I was putting this together, let me get this. I love when I talk extemporaneously and don't look at my notes, but then I go to my notes and I can't remember where I am. Okay, so with the report as a guide, the administrator can go to the Safety Management Resource Repository. Guests also have access to this, but they don't have the report to use as a guide. But here we have 89 evidence-informed resources to strengthen the 8 leading indicators. Why do I call it evidence-informed? Because when I was first starting the project, got money to do it, I reached out to people at Turner, at Skanska, at Clark, at Dimeo, at people in Canada, the Niagara Group, asking them, and they all knew about the SCAT and the 8 indicators, So I asked them to send me resources they could use, or they do use, to strengthen these indicators. And so after getting them back, we had 150 different resources that there is some overlap, like some could improve demonstrated management commitment, some in addition to another indicator. But anyway, let me tell you. So I asked them, I keep getting ahead of myself, but I asked them specifically of what you use, send me ones that you think small to medium-sized companies could use, not the real extensive stuff that isn't going to be possible. So we took the 150 that we got, and we met again with our user development team that I showed you in the beginning. And they helped us winnow it down to 90, or 89, 90, that they thought companies, smaller or medium-sized, could use to strengthen those indicators. So when when an administrator comes in and clicks on any of these indicators, what comes down are all the indicators, all the resources, either policies, guidelines, templates that are housed in the system that a company could use to strengthen that indicator. So he clicked on demonstrating management commitment. So all of these pertain to that. And again, the UDT helped us winnow it down and tell us which one they thought it could strengthen. Download it in Spanish or English. And the other thing that took me a really long time to do, so companies put their logos on it and send them in PDFs. How many have converted a PDF to a Word document? Not fun, yeah? Takes a really long time. It took me 6 months to get the Word documents, because I wanted them to be generic Word documents so companies could take it and tailor it. Remember, one construction company is one construction company. PowerPoints, whatever, they could put their logo on it. They could do whatever. So I wanted to make it completely generic. And they download it, and they can review it, and then they can develop an action plan once they decide what they want to do using it.
Yeah.
And I guess when they've contacted me, it's like, well, give them a sheet that goes with it and say where it says OSHA 30 hour, just think whatever. Because we're not going to make ones for other industries. How many guests? So people can, like I said, they can come in, but they can't do an SCAT assessment because we don't have any information to connect it to them. But they can watch the videos, they can go to the resource repository, download any of them, and they can also download a hard copy of an action plan if they want to do that. So we've got, out of those 814, 219, or 27%, have actually conducted an assessment, either an SCAT or SCAT-SC. From that 7,000 initial data, because we moved the data from the initial website into the SCSMIS, from the original, so we've added 6,000 new assessments, SCATs, and I think we only brought over 100 SCAT-SCs. I think that was it. So a lot of folks have taken the SCAT-SC too. This has been what's blown my mind. Over 130,000 resources. So across those 89 different resources, they have been downloaded over 130,000 times. So they're using the resources and they're tailoring them to their own companies. Just for some testimonials. Yikes, it's after 1. Sorry. And this one literally just came in. And this guy, this company, wasn't part of my study at all. he initially did an SCAT and then he kept wanting to do it, so he's been using the SCSMIS on his own now. They've done it 4 times in a row. He really bought into the continuous improvement piece of it. And he talks about using the resources, following the assessment, and he never saw my talk, so it's all on him. Sorry about that. Boy, that went fast. Sorry, Emily.
Thank you so much, Linda, for such a great seminar, a lot of good information. Again, safety is everybody's job. And so glad to hear on the website, CPWR, there's all the resources book. And please, yes, it's
In my
quite
email.
amazing job. And your email, perfect.
Yeah.
So we didn't have a chance to get to the question today.
We got
So
questions.
please-
If I had not taken any, I would have been on time.
And online virtual participant too. So glad to hear your welcome questions and you share your emails.
Yeah.
And happy retirement. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. So happy for you and such a great important job and
Thanks.
contribution to the field.
Yeah,
And I also
thank you.
like to take the opportunity to have another announcement. So thank you for joining
Yeah,
us today. And we are so happy to say, actually our team, we extend from the safety cultural climate to total worker health cultural climate to also want to help to build a respectful workplace culture and climate. So in May, actually, we have another seminar, which our outreach team and I will continue share our work from safety to total worker health to respectful workplace culture climate in May. And we love to have all of you join us. Again, we really appreciate it. We work co-research in reality, and we work together, hanging in. So we really appreciate that. So thank you so much again,
Yeah,
Linda.
thank you.
Really
Thanks for hanging in
appreciate
there.
it. And thank you
Sorry.
for all of everybody joining us online as well. Thank you.